Hello everyone, my name is Stanley St. Rose, and today we're going to be talking about Aria, a memoir of a bilingual childhood written by Richard Rodriguez. Now, before I go into summary analysis of this work, please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and or comment so that the channel can continue to grow. So, in this work by Richard Rodriguez, we're looking at Spanish as a language and English as a language. Richard Rodriguez, his family, his Hispanic, he has a Latino family, and basically they're living in California and they're trying to adapt to American life. This family, the mother and father, they speak Spanish primarily, and the kids, while they're growing up, they speak Spanish. Richard Rodriguez, at the beginning of the essay, we kind of see him, he's more comfortable. There's a lot of intimacy that, he express. Him and his family, they express through Spanish. And so they grew up in America, in a world that was very private. And Richard Rodriguez, throughout his essay, he kind of makes sure that we know this because his family was a very close-knit family. And the more that Richard Rodriguez and his siblings, they went into education, they started to speak English, the more his family started to go away from each other. At the beginning of the essay, we see, they're laughing, they're having fun as a family, they're close, they're connected, they're speaking Spanish freely, no one's correcting anybody's language, and it's pretty much, you can see that their culture, Hispanic culture, is represented, everything about them is represented, everything is kind of warm, and there's like a lot of love within the Rodriguez household. But the thing is, like, when they go to school, or how Richard Rodriguez refers to it, when they go into their public life, they have to speak proper English. And at first, Richard Rodriguez and his siblings, they didn't want to speak English because it kind of felt like it was taken away, taking something away from their home life. And so what basically happens, they go to a Catholic school, and the siblings are at this Catholic school, and the nuns want them to speak English. The nuns want them to be educated and speak proper English in the classroom, so they can not only speak to their teachers and to the nuns and to the other classmates, but so that they can adapt to American life. Now, when the nuns see that this wasn't working, they go to the Rodriguez household, and basically they tell the parents, if you want your kids to succeed, if you want your kids to do better, you're basically going to have to enforce them speaking English at the house. And the parents oblige because, they want their kids to succeed. They want their kids to do better. And so basically what happens is they enforce English at the household. They tell their kids that they have to speak English, and they all try to encourage each other by practicing English together. Now, while all of this is happening in the essay, Richard Rodriguez is also putting forward an argument about bilingual education. Now, within the United States, bilingual education is something that exists in a lot of states, that exists in a lot of counties, because there's an argument that says that a lot of minorities, a lot of Hispanic based households or students, they would do much better if they could be taught in English in American schools with their primary language. And there's some people that argue against it. There's some people that say that bilingual education there's no benefit there. Now, Richard Rodriguez, he's not saying that there's no benefit in bilingual education. He within this essay, he kind of argues, he shows and depicts and tells us that if you're going to be educated, if you're going to learn, it's by practicing the language. It's by speaking the language. He says, and he shows us, he gives us examples. He shows us examples in his life while he was growing up in public, or in the public world as he was growing up. He says that he's against bilingual education. He believes that just speaking English, speaking Spanish, you speak the language, you can be educated that way. So the essay, it builds on a lot. Like, the essay is not just about Richard Rodriguez's family. We also get a sense of culture. You're learning about Hispanic culture, Latin culture. You're learning about education and progress and success in the essay. Because Richard Rodriguez he not only learns how to speak proper English, he also loses his ability to communicate with his family. Because the more he studied, the more he spoke English, the more he got used to being an American, the more he kind of lost a piece of his culture. Now, he tells us many times within the essay that Hispanic culture is kind of tied with language, and that makes a lot of sense because when you lose the language of a country, you kind of lose the culture because a lot of the culture is tied with the language. We can see this in the many examples that he gives us where there are relatives that come to his house. There are other Hispanic individuals that are friends of his parents that come to his house. And whenever they try to speak with him, some of them get mad at him. Some of them are sad. Some of them are depressed. Some of them are disappointed in him because he doesn't speak Spanish, because he can't communicate with them with the Spanish language. Now, some of them, a lot of the people that come to the house, they can speak English. They can speak to him in English, but they feel like he's losing something by not speaking Spanish like they do, because a lot of the culture, they feel like it's connected to the language. So you get that he doesn't speak full Spanish or Spanish fluently because as a child he could understand it. As a child he picked it up. But the more he relied on English, the more he went into his education. He started writing, started reading, and started assimilated. The more he did that, the more he got a little bit more distant from his parents, and the siblings also. They started staying out later. They had friends. They were communicating with people in their neighborhood. When they were just speaking Spanish, when they were just pretty much a close, tight-knit family, they weren't communicating with other people. But the more that the family spoke English, the more they learned to speak English, the more you saw people interacting with them. You see the kids bringing home friends, spending more time with their friends than their parents. And that kind of changed the family dynamic because the father, his English was never good enough for him to connect to other English speakers. I mean, he had enough English. He spoke enough English to communicate with people, but not as much. He kind of goes silent throughout the essay because the way that he speaks Spanish, the way that he can command a conversation or take charge of a conversation in Spanish is not the same when you compare it to English or his skills in English. So the mother kind of becomes this not the breadwinner like the father works, but she becomes the speaker, the voice of the family. Richard Rodriguez says that the mother, his mother pretty much, she handles whenever they go out to pay bills, whenever the mother and father, they go out to pay bills or handle public affairs, the mother becomes the speaker because the father's not that confident in his English, and he becomes silent, not because he can't communicate, not because he can't talk to his kids, but just because his Spanish is just where he's stronger in speaking Spanish, and his full identity can come out when he's speaking Spanish. Another thing that's very significant about this work is how Richard Rodriguez explains to us how speech is important, how sound is important. Throughout the essay, there are things that you just can't convey with English. I mean, you can translate English to Spanish and Spanish to English, but there are some subtle tones, some subtle things that come with speaking in English that you just can't get through translation. Many times when Richard Rodriguez is hanging out with a friend or somebody that doesn't speak Spanish, and someone in his family says something in Spanish and he tries to translate it, the meaning, even though the word might be the same, but the meaning changes because with the way that it sounds, because when you're talking, when you're speaking to somebody, words can mean different things. They can mean different things based on how you say them. If I'm being sarcastic, you're going to hear it in my voice. If I'm trying to be funny, you can hear it in my voice. If I'm trying to ridicule you, you're going to hear it in my voice. So there's a lot that goes in with speaking Spanish and other languages, because each language comes with their own rhythm. Some languages, they're spoken faster. Some are spoken slower. Some are spoken with different tones, and there's different types of meaning hidden within language. And so Richard Rodriguez, he grows up. He gets an education. He talks about intimacy within this work, and how he felt more intimate with his family when he spoke Spanish. But later in the essay, we kind of learned that the more he learned English, the more his other siblings learned a language. Intimacy can be experienced through other languages. So yes, at the beginning of the essay, it seems like Spanish is just this private language between him and his family. But the older he gets, he kind of sees that you can convey intimacy through both English and Spanish. He has this one scene with his mother where his mother speaks English to him, and he kind of gets intimacy. And with his grandmother, his connection with his grandmother, his connection with his siblings, that all changes. His entire family dynamic changes. But it doesn't change for the worse. I mean, he develops a public identity, and also he develops a connection with his family at home. So within this essay, Richard Rodriguez, he presents to us the difficulties of speaking, well, he doesn't speak two languages, but the difficulty of existing in America when your culture clashes with American culture. Because in American culture, you have to speak English, you have to assimilate, you have to become, you have to adapt. And when you're coming from a culture such as a Spanish-speaking culture, forgetting how to speak Spanish or not speaking Spanish can make you an outcast, because a lot of times when he can speak in these Hispanic social events, he just couldn't be a part of them, because all of them focused or surrounded speaking Spanish. So there's a lot that go into it. You're getting, within this essay, you're getting Richard Rodriguez's view on bilingual education. You're getting his family dynamic. You're getting the story of how he became, or he created, a public identity for himself. You're getting a view of how his father adapted to the English world. You're getting a lot here in terms of a deeper meaning, in terms of analysis. The analysis of this essay, it's not just an essay about it's not just an essay about language. It's not just an essay about adapting to American culture, to American life. It's an essay that kind of gives you a taste of culture, or I guess we can say the melting pot of America. How existing here, your culture, your personal culture has to change, because Richard Rodriguez, he's not just an Hispanic individual. He's not just an American individual. He's mixed, because he understands Spanish. He understands his culture, but at the same time, he develops as an American. He gets assimilated to American culture, and he's still juggling everything from being with his family, developing intimacy with his family, and connecting to other people outside his home door. So there's a lot going on here, and it's very significant on how people adapt to different cultures. And pretty much in America is the only place where, the assimilation of cultures, I guess you can say, because there's no other country on earth where you get so many cultures and so many languages and so many different types of people mixing and amalgamating together. And so Richard Rodriguez's view on this really gives you a different perspective on how immigrants have to deal with adapting to American life. So that's my perspective on this essay. That's what I have to say about it. Please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and or comment, and I'll see you guys in the next video.